Hi everybody, I'm back. This time I want to tell a story about something that happened to me a couple years ago. In the meantime, thanks for everyone's comments and support, and I look forward to doing future videos about my biggest request was for food and how I eat and if I could do any recipes and cooking, so I'm going to try to do all that. And then about the cats and other things I do for anxiety and peace, and I have all kinds of updates. But in the meantime, as I work through those, I thought I'd share the story that the girls really wanted me to get out there, a good life lesson. I'm here at the scene of the crime, well, the second part of the story anyway, in my den and at the couch. This will become obvious momentarily, what I talk about. As always, I have some notes and my eyes drift off to remind myself why I don't do edibles anymore. I had kind of an epic fail first experience a couple years ago. I was looking, unfortunately, at my first recurrence and returning to treatment, and I had been diagnosed with something called gastroparesis, which is a slow-moving stomach, slow digestion, and really slow stomach. And that was an unpleasant diagnosis, and a very common medicines that they give for cancer patients doing chemo are antiemetics or anti-nausea meds, and those are basically the way they work because they slow your digestion. So I felt like I was kind of concerned about things getting worse during treatment, so I was looking at different things I ought to do to reduce those side effects and hopefully avoid taking some of those meds. So obviously I was worried. Concurrent to that, cannabis became legal in California. So previously I knew that my doctors, because it's kind of like a federal they're nationwide, not federal, but nationwide HMO, and because cannabis wasn't legal federally, they didn't want to prescribe me anything. So I was happy it was legal. I didn't have to deal with extra hurdles. And went to a shop in Santa Ana nearby, and Sean came with me, and I thought I had done some research, and so I guess I had something in mind. And when I checked in, I said, look, I'm a cancer patient. On my first time, I really need good guidance. And what did they give me? But like this young punk who was probably, barely sober, barely legal, and nice enough. But, I was very clear about being a newbie. I was 45 years old, never had done anything. I'll get to that in a minute. But I knew that marijuana had brought a lot of relief to cancer patients. Never knew too much. Started researching it just at that point. And so he started walking us through, the sales guy, through various edibles and joints and things. And, again, I stressed that I'm a newbie, that I am going to be going back into cancer chemo treatment, and really just wanted to kind of have that relief. So we left with some edibles, and we left with a couple of joints, and no explanations given, and that becomes really important. So we took some edibles that had THC, I guess one of the compounds, and CBD. But remember, that lack of guidance, and I'm going to call that guy, was a schmuck because it paid later. It hurt me. So I had no experience. The most experience I had was going to I went to a lot of concerts and would come home buzzed because of all the secondhand smoke. But for some reason, in my 45 years at that point, smoking never appealed to me in any way, shape, or form. So I just didn't gravitate to it, and it just stank. So what did I know? One of the cookies that we got, one of the edibles, was this beautiful red velvet cookie, maybe about this big. So I knew I wasn't going to eat the whole thing. And it was laced, the red velvet one was laced with the mind-altering compound of THC. So we started off on our next errand, Sean and I, off to the supermarket, to a health food store. And in the parking lot, I decided to try a piece. Luckily, I opened the label and read it. Not always something you do with a piece of food, especially a cookie. And it said, get this, eat 1/12. And it wasn't divided. It wasn't, scoured or anything. And so I did my best breaking it off, taking a chunk, saying, does this look like a 12th? And then I ate it. Okay, fine. So no one had said at that point, the instructions did not say that also you shouldn't take it without food. It shouldn't be done on an empty stomach. These are important points. So once in the market, we're shopping, and I remember having a heavy wave. Sorry, my cats are starting to cry in the background. Maybe they don't like the story. So I feel like my first wave, I get kind of dizzy, lightheaded, but then it kind of fades. And then Sean and I approach the cashier, and I lost it. I start laughing uncontrollably, and it consumed my body. I was laughing so hard, and I was happy to laugh, but it was very embarrassing because I had zero control over it. And, I felt like a 10-year-old doing potty jokes or something and just couldn't stop laughing. And it was so bad, I'm tearing up. I had to go sit down. Luckily, there was a counter nearby, and Sean had to finish the transaction. And the cashier is looking at him, looking at me, and he's like, look, it's her first time with medical marijuana. And he says it with a pretty straight face. God bless him. And I guess she looked like she had a little bit of compassion, but it was so embarrassing. So then we get in the car, and I come home. And when I get home, I start feeling really sick. And I just said, Sean, I got to lay down. And I just don't feel good. And then I couldn't leave the couch for the next 3 hours. It's something called couch lock. And, actor, comedian Seth Rogen, famously notorious for major cannabis supporter, hates edibles, and for this reason, and for good reason. So what happened is, it is the word, if you don't know about this phenomenon, if this hasn't happened to you, this is a really great example of teaching your kids and newbies to do their research and to trust where your food come from. So I was stuck on the couch for 3 hours, totally unable to move. I'm told it feels a bit like vertigo. I was unable to move my arms, my legs, my head. I couldn't even move my head. The pressure would be like coming in waves on me. It doesn't mean that I had relief. It was just like, and I just felt so sick and so scared because it was paralyzing, literally. And I was begging Sean, please call Kaiser. Please call somebody. There has to be something. Can't they tell you how long this is going to last? How does this work? Is there anything I can take? And he's like, no, there's no antidote. You have to just suffer through it and write it out. And I'm like, but how long? And I was so scared. But he knew, it's just, you got to write it out. Interestingly, a few months earlier, Sean did go to the hospital, the ER, for a severe and kind of isolated case of vertigo. It was so bad that he also was stuck on the floor upstairs, and the paramedics had to come and take him out and take him to the ER. Well, while we were in the ER, there was a guy on a gurney in the hallway, just groaning. And I'm just perplexed. Why is this guy being left in the gurney just to suffer in the hallway? And, Sean is suffering and he's hearing this. And the nurse would go up to him and saying, there's nothing we can do. You just have to write it out. I'll check on you. And he couldn't move. Well, it became, I had put that memory behind me until I was stuck on this couch and remembered what happened to that guy, and I'm certain he had edibles. So anyway, I still can't believe it was over a 12th of a friggin' cookie, a 12th of a friggin' cookie to knock me out like that. Yes, I had an empty stomach, All I can say is it was really scary and shocking, but here's where it got a little funny, I guess, and the kind of a lesson learned, and I'm always into making something a learning experience. Our girls came home from school, so this was during the middle of the week. It was in the afternoon, and I'm stuck on the couch just as they're walking home from school. So they're seeing me, and Sean has to explain to him, well, your mom had some pot, and it was in a cookie, and it made her really sick. And so they didn't know what to think. I think they were kind of laughing and bemused and all that stuff. But there you have it. So then once I finally came to, and it did, it took a few hours, but I finally started getting better gradually. I made Sean bring everything out that we bought and showed him everything. Showed him the cookie, showed him the bag of cookies, told him what to watch out for, because parties are notorious for kind of handing these things out. And basically you have to trust who you're grabbing your snacks from. What if you're drunk? What if you're at a party and you just show up and you're hungry and you eat a whole cookie? Do you really know what's in it? So, we laid down the parent guilt and fear pretty heavy, but we thought it was a learning moment. And the girls think it's a really funny story because they witnessed their mother on the couch, totally messed up and stoned. And I don't know that I have much else to share except to say that really shows what your mind does with drugs. It can be quite altering. I'm afraid of if I ate a whole cookie or half a cookie, what would have happened. But there you have it. Don't eat edibles. It's not worth it. I'm totally, after what I saw in the ER and what I went through, there's no reason. There's too many other options. What's so fun about it? Thanks.